have the right one.
We're rolling, Thomas.
All right. This first one is called Liberty Tree. In a chariot of light from the regions of day, the goddess of liberty came. 10,000 celestials directed the way, and heaven conducted the day. A fair lauding branch from gardens above, where millions and millions agree. She brought in her hand as a pledge of her love, and the plant she named the Liberty Tree. The celestial exotic stood deep in the ground. Like a native it flourished, or the fame of its fruit drew the nations around to seek this peaceable shore. Unmindful of names or distinction they came, for freedom like brothers agree. With one spirit endured, they one friendship pursued, and their temple was the Liberty Tree. Beneath this fair tree, like the patriarchs of old, they lowed in contentment, they ate, unvexed with the troubles of silver and gold. The cares of the grand and great, with timber and tar, they old England supplied and supported her power on the seas. Her battles they fought without getting a breath for the honor of the Liberty Tree. But here, all you swan, tale most profane, how the tyrannical powers, kings, common and lord, are uniting amain to cut down this garden of ours. From the east to the west blow the trumpet to arms. Through the land let the sound of it flee. Let the far and the near all unite with a cheer in defense of our liberty tree.
Woohoo! Very nice.
Yeah, you guys like sedition and poetry.
Poetic sedition.
I'll do one more, that's all right.
Yeah, do it.
And then we'll just go ahead and start straight up rabble rousing.
Yeah.
Let's say the verse only does so much.
Yeah.
All right. So this other one I was going to do, this is called Lines Extempore. Quick as the lightning's vivid flash, the poet's eye over Europe rolls, sees battles rage, hears tempest crash, and dims at horror's threatening scowls. Mark ambition's ruthless kings scathe the globe, while trailing after conquest's wing, man's festering wounds his demons probe. Colorado screams of reeking gore that stain the proud imperial day. He turns to view the western shore where freedom holds her boundless sway. 'Tis here her sage triumphant sways, an empire in the people's blood. 'Tis here the sovereign Lord gave no king, but he who rules above.
Woohoo!
Now hopefully that's something that doesn't change throughout the centuries either. We need seditious poets.
Yes. Sedition.
Well, I thought we would just get into some straight up sedition now, but you warmed up with some verse. Now I mentioned earlier that I was in and how to put it? The war started in high spirits. You know, everybody was rallied to the cause. We were going to go out there and we were going to take them down.
Get him.
Take down the crown.
Down with the king.
But what I saw, Green's army, saying goes, spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And I could not let such a grand cause wither away. So I wrote something. Spirit troops. And if you've heard enough, let me know. Never.
Never.
General, sign the... I have already. Anybody else ready to sign up?
I'm ready.
For the cause.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their faith. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman.
Yeah.
Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the heart of the conflict is more glorious to triumph.
Yeah.
What we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price upon its goods. And it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated. Britain, with an army to enforce her tyranny,
Yeah.
has declared she has a right, not only to tax, but to bind us in all cases whatsoever.
Boo.
Down with the crown.
Down with the king.
And if being bound in that manner is not slavery, then there is not such a thing as slavery upon the earth.
Right.
Boo.
Even the expression is impious. For so unlimited a power can only belong to God.
That's right.
Indeed.
Whether the independence of the continent was declared too soon or delayed too long, I will not now enter into as an argument. My own simple opinion is that had it been 8 months earlier, it would have been much better. We did not make proper use of last week, and neither could we while we were in a dependent state. However, the fault, if it were one, was ours. We have none to blame but ourselves. But no great deal is lost yet. All that Hal has been doing for this month past is rather a ravage than a conquest. See, they're ravaging our land.
Boo.
You're gonna let them ravage it?
No.
In which the spirit of the Jerseys a year ago would have quickly repulsed, which time and a little resolution will soon recover. I have as little superstition in me as any man living, but my secret opinion has ever been, and still is, that God Almighty will not give up a people to military destruction,
No.
or leave them unsupported to perish, who have so earnestly and so repeatedly sought to avoid the calamities of war by every decent method which wisdom could invent. Neither have I so much of the infidel in me as to suppose that he has relinquished the government of the world and has given us up to the care of devils. And as I do not, I cannot see on what grounds the King of Britain can look up to heaven for help against us. A common murderer, a highwayman, or a housebreaker
Boo.
has as good a pretense as he.
Yeah.
And we tried it the nice way. We tried it the civil way. Didn't we, General?
Yes, we did.
We did. For 20 years, we tried it the civilized way. We petitioned Parliament. We petitioned the King. We tried to do it the nice, peaceful way. Did they listen?
No.
No. What did they do? They shot our innocents down in cold blood up in Boston.
That's right.
Yeah, they did.
Massacred.
It was. It was. And once they have spilled the blood of our innocents, that is a line too far.
That's right.
That's right.
What way to answer with that than the force of an army?
Yeah.
An army to be led by a great and brave man.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Huzzah.
And he will lead us to victory.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
to
will.
victory.
Tis surprising to see how rapidly a panic will sometimes run through a country. All nations and ages have been subject to them. Britain has trembled at the report of a French fleet ravaging the kingdom of France. A flat-bottomed boat, sorry. And in the 14th century, the whole English army, after ravaging the kingdom of France, was driven back like men petrified. And this brave exploit was performed by a few broken forces, collected and headed by a woman.
Yeah!
Anybody know who that famous woman was that led the French to drive the English out?
Joan of Arc?
Oh, I'm sorry, what? Joan of Arc! Oh, you did Joan of Arc? Yes, very good. Very good. Would that heaven might inspire some Jersey maid to spirit up her countrymen and save her fair fellow sufferers from ravage and ravishment. Ladies, are you ready to be the Joan of Arc?
Yeah!
And rally up the spirits of your men, your brothers, your husbands, your sons, your sisters.
Yeah!
Up the spirit of your sisters. Sound like you're in a great rallying mood.
Let's do it!
Come on. Sorry, I was tying up my petticoats.
That's okay. Jet panics, in some cases, have their uses. They produce as much good as hurt. Their duration is always short. The mind soon grows through them, acquires a firmer habit than before. But their peculiar advantage is that they are I know, I need to get a better stride next time. The touchstones of sincerity and hypocrisy.
Oof.
And bring things and men to light which might otherwise have lain forever undiscovered. In fact, they have the same effect on secret traitors which an imaginary apparition would have upon a private murderer.
Oof.
Right. Because you know one thing a panic drives out? Traitors. They do. Because in a panic, when we panic here, who do the traitors run to?
The British.
The oppressors. Who is the oppressor?
The British.
That's right. They go and run to the crown. Leave us to rot. We don't need them.
No.
Are you with me?
Yeah!
Are you with me?
Yeah!
Are you ready to tear it down?
Yeah!
What are we tearing down?
The king!
Everything, yes. What's that everything? Yes.
Wait.
I'm not tearing you down.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was getting a little nervous.
No, you can get nervous, but you better win the next one.
Oh,
Or we will tear you down. Any questions? Now is the time to ask at this point. Questions? No questions for Thomas Paine. Ask away. Yes, please.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
In my career as a writer and pamphleteer, just in general.
I'm the one that checked you in over at Clark. The passport has been since 1801.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
I think my greatest achievement was doing my part to help win the independence of this land. My adopted
Yeah.
country. As I mentioned earlier, for those of you who missed the first half of the presentation, that's okay. When I was in England, I was a nobody. I was a failure. I was what they call in modern parlance a loser. When my wife had died, my first wife died, I left my second. I got fired from one job, left another profession. I came here to this land, seeking opportunity.
Woo!
And sometimes when opportunity knocks, she has a torch and a musket for you.
Yeah, she does.
Oh no, that was, I would say overall, that was my greatest accomplishment. In general, help winning liberty. Writing
we were supposed to
wise,
share that.
known as my two greatest works, everybody words. Which, if you haven't, read it. Excellent book, very short.
He just does it.
Bail's expensive.
I'm advocating for you.
Especially when you have a certain friend who can't spring you.
I'll allow you to explain it.
So, here's one thing that a lot of people don't know. I'm going to step aside a bit. George Washington and Thomas Paine were actually very close. General Washington had a lot of thanks for Paine, not only for the crisis papers, but for keeping the spirits of the troops high. Now, here's the thing with me. You think once we won liberty here, I was satisfied?
Nope.
No! There is still oppression to fight. There's still oppression to fight. People still need to be liberated. So I went over to France. They were having their own revolution. After they helped us win our revolution, they went and had their own revolution. And I said, Vive la France. I took the side of the revolutionaries in France. Now, where I got in trouble, there's a common theme here in my life, you may have noticed. It actually wasn't my writing that got me in trouble in France. I actually got in trouble in France because I made the polite suggestion that, yeah, down with tyranny, but maybe we shouldn't behead the king in public. Well, the French are a little bit more radical than I was at the time. So they said, no, we want to behead the king, we're going to throw you in the Bastille. So I thought, well, you know, our revolution's over. On to General Washington, President Washington. All in a favor to an old buddy. Now I obviously could not write to President Washington from jail. That's why they call it jail. One of my confidants who was in France with me, managed to avoid arrest, wrote to Washington on my behalf, asking him to intercede for my release. Washington refused.
Boo.
Washington refused. Now,
There's a reason. Hold on.
there's a reason. Can anybody tell me why would Washington refuse to intercede for my freedom of speech? Take a guess. Even if you don't know, just raise your hand and take a guess. It wasn't in the budget. Well, you know, there actually might be a reason for that. I don't know how much you guys have studied your history, but at the end of the American Revolution, the Continental Congress was broke. I mean, busted. The money was worthless. So there might be a reason. You got your hand up. Oh, that's good. That's close, actually. It wasn't so much a disagreement, although Washington was certainly more moderated in his public statements than I was. No, it had come down to the fact we had just fought in a war with one European power. We had taken on England, which is no mean feat. You know, once again, if you know your history, there used to be an old saying, sun never sets on a British crown. We helped it set.
Yeah, you did.
So we had just gone to war with one European power. Washington didn't want to use his influence to release Paine because he was worried it might drag the Americans into the French Revolution. It was nothing personal. But remember, the country was bankrupt. We had no army, basically. He didn't think it was politically wise or expedient to do it. Now, even though it wasn't personal, anybody want to know how maybe I felt about it?
You took it personally?
Huh? Oh, very much. Never the hot man. I took it as a personal slight. Very much so. And in reality, Paine and Washington never spoke or corresponded again.
Oof. Oh.
Yeah, I was imprisoned in France for about 2 years. Basically, Paine was released. I was released after the Reign of Terror, after they ran out of heads to chop off.
Lucky one yours.
Lucky one mine. That's when I was released. I did return back to my adopted country, continued to write. Another great pamphlet of mine. I don't have it with me, but you should really check it out. One of the last works I wrote while in the newly formed United States. Agrarian Justice, where I laid out my views for how we should govern now that we're free, and how we should take care of our citizens now that we're free. Excellent read. Excellent read. But get back, I know, your question was a whole tangent. Sorry. That's great. No.
You're doing great.
As far as my best work, the two that I would recommend, if you haven't read them, obviously Common Sense, and if you have the time, definitely read The Rights of Man, which actually came about from my involvement in the French Revolution. I had a disagreement with a gentleman by the name of Edmund Burke, who was an English writer, philosopher. He was what you might call a monarchist.
Ugh.
I don't really like monarchy of any kind.
Like him already.
So, The Rights of Man is my response to Edmund Burke's arguments in favor of a monarchy system of government. It's, of course, a lot more detailed than Common Sense, but I think you would find both really a worthwhile read. My two greatest works, definitely Common Sense, Rights of Man. Once again, I recommend Agrarian Justice and a few works that I wrote about how to govern now that we were free. So, excellent question. Any other questions, please? Got 1 minute. 1 minute. Last minute questions. Honestly, last minute questions. Going now. Oh,
I'm sorry. Is it true that you basically died homeless?
that is true.
Much like Mozart.
Much like Mozart, although I wouldn't compare myself to him.
Oh.
No, that is true, and this is another kind of difference between Washington and Paine. Both vital to the revolution, but while Washington, obviously had Mount Vernon, had the presidency, had the land, the plane.
All right, we get it.
Later, I understand we may or may not have put him on some currency. Paine actually died in poverty when he returned to the colonies. Well, the newly formed United States colonies. Showed England we don't need yet. But the American Revolution over, French Revolution over, there was really not a lot for him to agitate anymore. People kind of forgot about it. And when Paine died, he died in 1807. Who outlived the person who wouldn't spring him from jail. That is. Anybody care to guess how many mourners were at his funeral? Just give me a number. How many from the audience?
5.
What do you say, sir? 20. 20. Oh, that would have been nice. 7. 7 people were at his funeral. And we still, I'll leave you with this, am I still good? Can I answer this last question?
Oh yeah, no, please go.
I don't want to step on your toes.
No,
You're the general.
I've got 10.
You're
10
the general.
So one's gone, that's okay.
I'll leave you with this. We actually do not know the location of Thomas Paine's remains. He was buried here in the colony. He was buried in Massachusetts. And about 20 years after he died, one of his admirers in England came over to the States and wanted to exhume his body and take him back to England to be buried in his homeland as a hero. Unfortunately, the ship that was carrying the body wrecked. His remains are forever lost. Now you will find people throughout history, read up on it, who have claimed to have Thomas Paine's hand, Thomas Paine's leg, etc. Kids, history gets kind of boring. Sometimes. But no, the sad truth is we have no idea where his final resting place is. So, born into poverty, failure until he was 40, until he found a great cause.
Yeah.
But once that cause was finished, he was back to obscurity. I've been Thomas Paine. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.